All right, welcome back and thanks for staying with us. If you're just joining us, you're watching Daybreak on Trust TV. Now it's time for the newspaper review. Let's take a look at the stories on the front pages of the national dailies. The lead story on Daily Trust is what we will be talking about right now. We'll start with, it says, subsidy removal. Experts flay federal government's $800 million palliatives. Say amounts just 6% of 6 trillion naira annual subsidy. It will be 2,000 naira one-off support per citizen, and no lesson learned from 16 billion naira wasted on Shopee in 2012. You can find details of that on page 4, and below that story is a pictorial of President Muhammadu Buhari presenting a souvenir to the outgoing ambassador of the United Arab Emirates, and also that of Angola to Nigeria, and in Abuja yesterday. We also have below that, many mourners killed in fresh attack on Benue community. Buhari sacks Saratu Umar as NIPC boss. On page 9, reps mandate 5-year practice for doctors before leaving Nigeria. Many missing as boat capsizes in Bayelsa. And at the top of the page there, 10th NAS. APC governors give yardstick for choosing principal officers. Airlines cancel flights as fan oil marketers clash in Abuja. And in sports FIFA rankings, Nigeria slips to lowest position in 4 years. Details on page 31. These are some of the stories on Daily Trust newspaper.
We move on to the Punch newspaper, which is celebrating its 50th anniversary of what has been a robust journalism over the years. The lead story here, entering government parties back military as defense headquarters rubbishes plot, says call illegal. INEC has announced president-elect entering government can't stand, DHQ warns. Calls for entering government a coup, treasonable, unpatriotic, APC, PDP, NNPP. And military cannot interpret constitution, says Labour Party, tells DHQ to avoid politics. And there we have pictures of the IG decorating newly promoted DIGs and AIGs. I think we have one of the pictures there of Frank Umba, whom we have seen a steady rise from his days as the first PRO to Commissioner of Police, and now DIG, if I'm not mistaken. And to other stories, Bua Food grows revenue to 418 billion. And remain in Lagos for census, Ohaneze tells Igbos. And to other stories, Rep probe alleged 20 billion diversion from NNPCL officials. And SAC LP chair blames APC as police occupies secretariat. And killer headsman raids Benue community, kill policeman 45 others. These are the major stories on the front page of the Punch newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at the Nation newspaper today. And we have the lead story there, why Tinubu was elected by US-based observer mission. We have the writer that says NDI IRI leader Carson speaks on poll at meeting with minister in Washington, D.C. At the top of the page there, Macron seeks China's action to end Russia-Ukraine war. Leadership crisis tears Labour Party apart. Abure Apapa lay claim. And we have Obasanjo urges incoming government to begin healing reconciliation. Pressure on me to go into self-exile, Obi alleges. And we have just below the nameplates there, gunmen kill 3 policemen in Edo, 3 Lagos residents. And at the bottom of the page, mischief makers plotting interim government, says DHQ. No easy electoral victory again, Buhari tells politicians. And on the footnote there, Rivers APC suspends Amechi, attacks Mogalo defense Shoyinka. And these are some of the stories on the Nation newspaper.
Moving on to the Guardian newspaper. This morning, it's a different kind of headline. A protest, if you like. National Stadium of Shame, filth, 31 months after $1 million facelift. A big story is on page 4 and 5. You'll find it at the top of the famous National Stadium there in Surulere, Lagos. A project that was awarded in 2020 and completed in May 2021. And now in a complete sorry state. Obasanjo says 2023 polls shameful, urges next government to end ethnic division. And Labour unmoved, says FG wants to cash in on $800 million palliative. Questions over 12 billion airport fire struck. You'll find that on the transport page 20. And then MPCL hints at $40.8 billion gas pipeline amidst push by Europe. And finally, confusion as LP headquarters witnesses siege. National Working Committee replaces Aburi as chairman.
Okay, let's take a look at Nigerian News Direct, and from the top of the page there, recovery rate highest globally, says AMCON to NDA. Buhari fires Saratu Umar as NIPC boss. We also have the lead story that says post-election trauma, confusion as LP leaders fight dirty over positions. Party NWC declares replacements. Embattled chair cries foul, accuses APC of attempt to inaugurate illegitimate executive. NLC faults court judgment on sack of party executives, says it is meant to decapitate leadership to weaken party. And we also have 2023 presidency. My counsel to Tinubu Atiku was to leave the stage for fresh blood, says Shoinka. And these are some of the stories on Nigerian News Direct.
And moving on to this day newspaper this morning, it's leading with the story, Buhari, no more easy route to power than electorate. With the riders, happy voters rejected 10 governors' bids to Senate. Says 2023 poll result has changed nation's political landscape. Expresses belief politics will be difficult henceforth. Declares democracy as the best system in Africa despite military incursion, and bids Angola UAE envoy farewell. Of course, you also find pictures there of the chief of staff, the UAE envoys, as well as the Minister of Foreign Affairs there in a photo opportunity with the president. And to other stories, World Bank, Nigeria's growth recovery is still fragile as oil production remains subdued. 22 African countries at high risk of external debt distress, prescribes debt reduction, domestic revenue mobilization strategies. To other stories, $800 million World Bank support. NECA urges FG to prioritize fixing refinery above sharing palliatives. And armed police take over Labour Party national headquarters. But the last story is there, Obasanjo's next government must strive to end nation's ethnic division. Believes such moves may heal, assuage enraged Nigerian youths. Says he's too old to keep quiet as his letterman obligation demands truth. These are the stories on the front page of this day newspaper.
All right, and with that, we're done reeling out some of the stories on the front pages of the newspaper this morning. We'll move on to our guest in the studio. And as usual, he's Nuruddin Abdullah, editor, 21st Century Chronicle, joining us for an in-depth analysis of some of these stories. Good morning.
Good morning.
And thank you. I think we need to stop telling you good morning because you're more like our co-anchor every Friday. You become a co-anchor.
Yeah, I thought you would add some adjective in describing Nuruddin. Maybe you would have said the robust.
Thank you so much for joining us today once again. All right, so let's start with the glaring headline on a Daily Trust newspaper talking about the aftermath, supposed aftermath of the subsidy removal. And experts actually flaying federal government's $800 million palliatives. We actually talked about this the last time, and lots of people had concerns as to if these palliatives will actually get to everyone, considering how history is actually fed. And it actually said it will be 2,000 naira one-off support per citizen if this actually pushes through. What's your thoughts on this?
So I think the palliative approach is to pedestrian, so to say. Particularly bearing in mind, I think it's a mentality of people in government that, okay, let them get something. Particularly if you look at what happened in 2012, when Jonathan increased the PMS price, you know, we had the Shuapi. I think up to now, I think EFCC or ICPC are still investigating some of how some of these funds, you know, fizzle out. As even some officials arrested and arraigned. It is beyond handing out peanuts. I think maybe what the Tinubu administration should do is to go back to what Abacha did. Yes, we are spending 6 trillion annually on subsidy. Tell Nigerians what can this 6 trillion add to their lives. This is what I'm going to do. It should be project-centric, not handouts. It will be hijacked by party officials, people who are supposed to get it will not get it, people who are supposed to even give something, this handout from their pockets will hoard it, and so on and so forth. Look at what Abacha did with the PTF. How much did he increase in the pump price at that time? But almost all over the country, at that time you could see the PTF roads, PTF hospitals, PTF blocks of classrooms, and so on and so forth. So it should go beyond handouts. We are spending 6 trillion now. We have 6 geopolitical zones. Let's pick the first here. Build confidence. Instead of just spending this money. Yeah, you'll pay higher for the PMS. But this is what we're going to build for you. We have 6 geopolitical zones. Pick at least one major project. It could be health, it could be a factory, it could be school, it could be whatever. ₦1 trillion per geopolitical zone. Do it for the first year and see what happens. But now you're talking about 800 million World Bank grant. So what happened the following year? What happened to the 6 trillion? Are you going to rechannel it back, excuse me, to the budget that will fund the lives of some top bureaucrats and politicians? No. Let's know what you're doing with the 6 trillion. Then Nigerians will believe you. But $800 million, you know, it's too pedestrian the way these people think.
Interesting perspective there. Interesting also is the fact that the current president and Minister of Petroleum was also the chairman of the PTF. One would have thought that he would have had that handout ready for all of this, what appears to be a socialist approach to governance, but that will be a conversation for another day. Yesterday, the Federal Airport Authorities, in a seeming clash with petroleum oil marketers, shut its doors to the marketers and prevented the supply of Jet A1 fuels to the station, and thereby crippling operations of the airline from whom you are supposed to also take cost. What did you make of the incident yesterday over an alleged 100% increase in troopers' charges? Should it be the time, and is this the best approach to carry out those kind of enforcement?
You see, Nigeria is a very funny country. The incident was not only embarrassing, but you know, Nigeria, we are the biggest economy. Other African countries should learn from us. But unfortunately, and it happened here in Abuja. Not in one remote state in the northeast, southeast, or what have you. And I don't know actually the mentality of our people in uniform. You remember these same FAN officials? The federal government has okayed them to bear arms. They are not yet bearing arms. But look at the violence they are trying to. I remember when the announcement was made that the FAN officials now will bear arms out of it. There were a report that there were celebrations in Lagos, MM2 and MM1. Yes, we are going to match them. Because there are sometimes there are clash between the FAN officials who they believe they are the landlord of the airport.
And the efforts of
and the
police.
DSS officials, the custom officials, the immigration officials, and so on and so forth. It is unnecessary. Very, very unnecessary. So they want to bear arms. They say that Air Force officials, DSS, we are intimidating them. I was telling a friend, I said, I'm afraid there will be shootout between these two agencies or more in our airports because of some ego-driven tendencies. What happened yesterday was simply egoistic. And I hope the FAN officials responsible for this should be publicly reprimanded.
One would have expected that since this is there and the kind of discomfort it caused people, that they would have even issued a public apology, but rather they were trying to justify why the action was necessary, whether or not it cost other people hundreds of thousands of naira in business operations or meetings or not.
Another thing is nobody takes them to court. The damage, the loss they incur are some of the stakeholders of the aviation sector, particularly here based in Abuja, you know. If you take them to court and hold them responsible, maybe they will begin to nip their egoistic tendencies so that, you know, the country can move forward. We hope that the Minister of Aviation will tackle this madness before he leaves.
All right, let's talk about what's happening, you know, the crisis brewing in the Labour Party. And it actually seems like a repeat of what's actually happening between Njoku and Oye. You know, a lot is happening in that party at the moment. And, you know, some of them are actually blaming the APC, you know, for what's going on in it.
Yes, what is happening in Labour actually is not surprising if you look at the political trajectory of parties, of popular parties that lost elections. They lost the national election. And if you see how the Labour came to be what it is today, it was an amalgamation of different characters who agreed to come together and pursue a political goal, winning election, particularly at the national level. But that did not happen. You remember in 2011, during Buhari's CPC, something happened like that. After he lost the presidential election, the chairman of the presidential council, presidential campaign council, his long-term ally, right from the Buhari days, the TBO days, Salahama resigned. The secretary of the campaign council, Alaji Buba Galadima, equally resigned. You understand? And this, they have been with him since he started his political sojourn. You understand? Senator Hanga, he's now back, who gave his property as the headquarters of the party, equally had issues, and he left. So it's a recurring dismal. Unfortunately, Nigerian politicians particularly are still unable to figure out ways of managing their parties in defeat. You remember even, take the ANPP, the major opposition party before the birth of the APC in 2013. The moment they lost election, 2007 for instance, there was government of national unity. That was the carrot dangled before them. The ANPP national chairman,
Maybe-
donated his son
or
as advisor to the president.
Mozike was.
Exactly, you remember. Some of the key governorship stakeholders, like from Borno, Ali Modi Sharif at that time, he donated his in-law as a minister. Jirima Bakura was one of the key MPP. So automatically, when that carrot was dangled before them, there was scramble for it. So the whole party collapsed. So what is happening in Labour, is not something out of the usual. Managing the fortune of a political party in defeat, particularly popular. CPC was very popular when Buhari came. Obi, you see what happened. He gathered almost 6 million votes. High expectations, and there will be blame game. Okay, Dashan didn't do this. Mr. Sunday didn't do this. I didn't do what have you. So it's usual with our. Maybe we have to learn.
Hardware or
All right.
something.
We saw the governors there giving out conditions for how the Senate president would emerge. One begins to wonder, at what point would we ever allow the Senate or the National Assembly to decide on its own leadership, as we have seen in other climes? Well, you would say the president will have interest, but not to the level of then sitting there and setting criteria for what is supposed to be an independent arm of government and deciding for them who should or who shouldn't get. What's your take on this latest move by the governors?
I think, since the Obasanjo's presidency, the governors became the party leaders. So the party executives, unlike the Akinloye time of the NPN, for instance, where the party is everything, but now the governors are more powerful because they control fund. You remember I mean in PDP when Alhaji Bamanga Tukur tried to reincarnate the supremacy of the party over everybody. You know what happened to him? He was booted out by the same governors. Now that's the situation we are. So because they have money? No. On Sunday, you will represent your senatorial district at the Senate or federal constituency at the instance of your state governor. He can deny you a ticket. He can instigate your recall and what if because you know the control resources. But I think there will be a paradigm shift now. We are not going to experience what we experienced in the last 8 years of Buhari's administration, because Tinubu is a different person from Buhari. You look at it now, he tells you that he doesn't have a candidate. But that is not true. Only that he is doing it in the most politically professional manner. Unlike what Buhari did in 2014, I don't have a candidate. Hours to the inauguration of the National Assembly, you called for a meeting elsewhere. And that was how Saraki and his men launched that coup, and he emerged as Senate President. You understand? Already the President has inaugurated through that letter. And you still call these people to a meeting elsewhere. The other came, and Saraki became the Senate President, and you see the confusion. All the what have you. But unfortunately, again, we hope it will be different now. Tinubu knows what he's doing. He's a professional politician. He's more dynamic, more experienced, more subtle. You remember how he got the party, the APC primaries, at the APC primaries? From the Emilio Khan, Lajok. He's the president-elect now. That's how he will handle the National Assembly. You may not know these are his candidates, but he will work hard, lobby, and they will emerge. Certainly.
Okay. Well, I think with that, would actually wrap up the newspaper review right about now. But Mr. Nuruddin Abdullah, you actually still remain with us up until the next hour for our discussion. Thank you so much for coming into the studio to analyze the stories with us.